The Just podcast is brought to you by ReCity Network. ReCity is the Triangle's hub for social impact. If you're interested in learning more about ReCity, start by booking a tour at recitynetwork.org. ReCityNetwork.org is also where you can go to subscribe to their monthly newsletter or make a donation to support ReCity's work. The website again is recitynetwork.org.
You're listening to Just, stories about the people working to build thriving communities rooted in justice, a part of the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network in partnership with ReCity and Coastal Credit Union. I'm Jess Averhart, co-founder of Black Wall Street Homecoming.
And I'm Rob Shields, executive director of the ReCity Network.
All right, look, so here's why we're here. We're here to get proximate, we're here to listen, we're here to process, and we're here to help you process.
But here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to be preachy because we don't have all the answers, and we will never make you feel like an outsider.
Keeping with the theme of sharing, we always want to acknowledge the whole person, and that starts with our personal check-in.
Let's do it. Oh, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back here. This is tons of fun. This is a highlight for me, Rob. Yeah. You, my friend, and our guest today are my highlight. So I'm excited.
This is,
and I'm trying to sell my car. I mean, I know this is a real check-in, so like for the listeners are like, yeah, okay, Jess, we knew you're excited, but what else?
Is that stressing you out? Because that can be a really stressful thing.
Selling the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know anything about cars, and I have notoriously purchased bad cars.
Right.
I buy the car for what it looks like.
Right.
Maybe that's pretty common, but I know that's not a good thing. Yeah. I don't want to invest the energy.
But now you're trying to make better decisions. Hey, I
2020
hit the reset button.
It's all about perfect vision.
Let's get this car sold. Right?
That's what I'm doing in 2020. It's all about, which includes getting rid of this car I got and getting a more practical.
Sounds like one of your New Year's resolutions right now. It's like, hey, let's get.
Oh, it is. It's on a big sheet of paper taped to my bathroom. So
one of my resolutions could be to help you sell the car because I love that stuff. Craigslist
don't
is amazing.
Say something like that and think I'm not taking you up on it.
I mean it. No, for real.
I'm not married. That's just me. I'm going to play the whole like damsel in distress.
I love negotiating.
Single woman.
About posting a car on Craigslist and then like hustling to
I love it.
It is.
Are you going to require that I give you a percentage?
No, you're my friend.
See, okay, then you sold.
I'm not in that for no. I want you to get more value because holy smokes, people get raked over the coals when they take it to a dealer.
When they meet someone like me, let's be clear, they're like, oh, she doesn't know. I think they throw out a word, at least one term, and I bet you they do this behind the scenes. Like it's going to be like
we know that this is
catalytic converter or something, which I know that word, but I don't know what it means. No. And I bet they do that and be like, how does she respond?
Full transparency for our listeners. I'm not saying I know anything. I don't know what that is either. All right. So I'm not a mechanic. I'm just saying I know how I enjoy buying and selling cars on Craigslist. So I actually don't know how cars work at all. So
right. We'll be all behind the scenes because we'll be on Craigslist. I'm just saying if I go to a dealer, it's a wrap. Like they're taking me out because
So we need to not let that happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how are you doing besides the car and you helping me now? You've got a new role.
Well, yeah, I actually have a new longer to-do list now after this, which
you're welcome.
I think I'm excited about. Actually, I'm trying to sell mine too. So I think my update might be I'm trying to sell mine as well.
Good.
Yeah.
It's just economies of scale now. You just add mine to it.
I think this podcast has become about buy Rob and Jess's cars. Right?
Go to the website. We'll throw down. We'll put it
here we go.
Right.
Please, best offer available. We'll create a bidding. The bid is on now, right now. Just go ahead and submit your number to us. Silent auction.
Love it.
So no, I'm doing good. I'm excited about today. This is an important conversation. So I'm looking forward to what's in store here. So I think let's get rolling.
Let's go.
Super excited for our guest interview today. Known this guy for quite a long time. Gerard Staten, Executive Director of the Helios Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provides coaching and mentoring for small businesses, particularly for necessity-driven entrepreneurs. I am really excited about this conversation. Gerard, your work is incredible. I've seen it up close for several years now. And I'm just pumped for what you're going to have to be able to share for our audience. I think you've got a lot of valuable things to say. So let's just jump right into this. I want you to set the tone for us.
Great.
Is entrepreneurship just?
No,
Is it just?
Not in any way. I just learned this morning, that apparently we are second in the U.S. for entrepreneurship and development. And this is insane. Blacks here in, is it the triangle?
The triangle, yeah.
Yeah, help to clarify that. Yep.
And that number is, I don't know if we curse on this podcast, so I'll just say BS. One of the last numbers that I've seen was done by the MDC, who said that Durham and Raleigh are both counties that are Wake County are in the lowest 6% in the United States for social mobility, which means that if you are born poor in Durham, you will be poor when you reach retirement age.
Wow.
It would be, in fact, it's better if you were born poor and Black in particular in Oakland than it would be if you were born poor and Black in Durham. And that is appalling. Yeah. And so
94% of other communities are better than us.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
Say that. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that ties in a lot to this monopoly study. I know you've heard me talk about it, and maybe, I don't know if there's time to go into it, or maybe I just have to refer people to look up the studies. But
go there, man.
But give us a high level. Yeah.
So one of the things that they talk about, and there are a number of these studies, they're done everywhere. If you take 6 people, start the game of Monopoly, which we all know, you let 2 of them start. They can play for 20 or 30 minutes. When you bring in the second group of people, then those 4 will play for another 20 or 30 minutes. And then you bring in the last 2 people. The results of that game never, ever vary. In fact, I will give this a challenge to anyone. Do this, and if the results are different, send it in. I don't know. I'll eat some trash. I don't know. Whatever. But
you'll buy them the game of Monopoly.
Sure. I'll buy them like Batman Monopoly or whatever. But the results are always the same. The people who win the game are always in the first 2 people to play. And the second place person is always the other one. The people who come in third or fourth are always the second group of people, and the people who come in last are always the same. The other thing that happens, and this is probably one of the things that is the hardest, now that we know for a fact that the people who start the game are just going to win because they have collected more money, they've started to buy up more of the property. One of the things that we see is when the second group comes in, they think that they have a shot. And that is because when they come in, all the properties aren't bought yet. So they think that they can, I can jump in and maybe I can get North Carolina Avenue. But they don't have enough money to buy North Carolina Avenue. And so before they get on it, the first group of people will end up buying a lot of those properties. What also never fails is that the last group never enjoys the game. They never feel like they're going to win. There's never any hope. And one of the things that was the most heartbreaking to me is that when you talk to some of the people who are last, who come in last, the only thing that they want in the game is to go to jail. Because if you go to jail, then you have 3 turns where you're not just paying things out, landing on other people's property and being stressed. And so they just want to give up.
I love that story. And it puts me I liked the idea of being able to think about what it would feel like to be given the dice or whatever it is, second or third, knowing that you can't, or maybe trying, right? But you can't. And then I'm sure then the lesson at the end of that is, okay, then let's apply this to real life.
Absolutely.
Let's look at our communities in which that is the case, the 400-year tree, and think about what's the impact, the generational impact. You have this term that I think our audience would be really interested in, which is called necessity-driven entrepreneurship. You hear it kind of thrown around, but it's a fairly new term. I think our audience will be curious to hear how you define that. So help us understand what you mean by necessity-driven entrepreneurship.
Necessity-driven entrepreneurs, in general, they have a few things in common, but the biggest part of that is that they start their business, their side hustle, whatever you want to call it, their little part-time gig, as a way to make ends meet. When we first started this work, I had a very limited reason for why I thought people were necessity-driven entrepreneurs. They were single parents. They were justice-involved individuals. They were people with mental, physical, emotional disabilities. They didn't have, in this area that has so many universities, even having a college degree sometimes isn't enough to get you a job that makes you a fair living wage. So we're not talking about unemployable people. We're just talking about people that have limited employment. They're unable to do a lot of big things that can get them out of poverty. But since then, we've been finding that there are hundreds of reasons to make necessity-driven entrepreneurs. It is being a minority, unfortunately, or, not being male. Not to bash men, but there is definitely a disparity there. The LGBTQ community, there are 100 reasons why we're unable to get the great corner office job. Necessity-driven entrepreneurs, they go out and they make that extra money anyway. They start a business because they have to, not because they always wanted a bakery, but because we have to eat next week, and so I'm going to start this business. The other thing that is really important to know is that necessity-driven entrepreneurs start their businesses with the idea of making money immediately. I think we all know, any of us that have gone into business school knows that the right process to do this is to find a problem that needs solving, put your business plan together, gather some resources, all that, and that's great if you've got that kind of time.
Yeah.
Necessity-driven entrepreneurs need to make some money right now, and they would rather make $300 this weekend than make $80,000 3 years from now.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the big things that we find in our work.
Talk about the role that it feels like there's this competition between the mindset of an entrepreneur almost needs to be in this abundance and confidence of like, I will succeed, right? But yet your clients are often coming from a place of survival, right? And maybe even scarcity.
Yes.
Talk about how do you see those things conflict in the lives of your clients ever, or where that's a hurdle because of where they're coming from and maybe even how their mentality, you talked about learned helplessness before. Just unpack kind of maybe that tension that maybe exists in your world as a hurdle to launching and having that business thrive as opposed to someone who does not have those competing factors going on.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a massive bone of contention for our clients. It is the primary reason that Helios exists. So one of the things that we do in our program is, and probably the thing that differentiates us from other programs is that we're a high-touch, long-term organization. So our organization really works with entrepreneurs for at least a year, because we know that that's the amount of time it takes to change that mindset. Because you're right, that mindset is the thing that really matters. They're at this place of scarcity. Their business is not going to grow unless they start to change into an abundance mindset. But they can't. There's no reason for them to, and they don't have any evidence of that. You talked about learned helplessness. That's another one of those studies that we really used when we formed Helios. I think Dr. Seligman, maybe 75 or so, did these learned helplessness experiments. Again, they're things that you can look up, but just as a rough, what he did is he would put animals in a cage with a low wall and then give them a shock. And not a light shock, but a really painful, horrible jolt. And they would jump this low wall to go to the safe side, and they would be good. And they would do this over and over, and they would constantly go to the safe side and be fine. But if you leash the animals in place and give them the shock, there's nothing they can do about it. They'll pull and yank, and eventually they'll stop pulling. If you take the leashes off then and give them the shock, they won't move. They'll just take it. And again, this is still terribly painful, is a horrible thing. So they'll just take it.
After the leash had been on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's conditioning.
Yeah.
Now, that's all well and good, and I think most of us get that. And we deal with this with some of our mentors, making sure that they understand this, because the real problem is that in these experiments, if you give the dog the shock, pick it up and move it to the safe spot, it doesn't learn that it's safe. If you do the experiment again, it will still just take it. You have to move the animal sometimes dozens, if not more times, before it accepts and believes that there is actually a way out for them. And that is why a lot of mentorship doesn't work when we're talking about that sort of thing, especially when we're talking about generational learned helplessness. I can't walk into a room, drop some knowledge bomb on someone, and then think they just got it. And then I can roll out of there, pat myself on the back. That person will get it. They totally understand.
And they want to get it.
They want to
believe
get it. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
And then they will go home and they will listen to a spouse that doesn't believe it, friends that don't believe it, relatives that don't believe it, and then they will revert right back to their regular way. And so we have to convince them and talk to them and show them other examples of people over and over again until they do believe it.
We'll bring you more Just Podcast right after this. If I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, well, okay. I feel a little hopeless.
Right.
And I'm also feeling more educated. I understand this.